if you don't give us more money, we're going to dump your 5-year-old daughter in the brush and leave her to die. And we knew they would, because the case started with them dumping her aunt, who was a 16-year-old physically, mentally challenged female, and they left her in the brush to die. But there was some pretty horrific stuff. Oziel, he had a line that he fed people to. We confirmed that. Thought that was a wives' tale. That he had a midget who was blessed in the nether region that he would use to torture people. And we thought, that's BS, man. That's a bit. So one Christmas Eve.
So what kind of cartel stuff were you working on?
Well, I was I was there for 6.5 years. I started on the drug squad, so you're already working cartel stuff, right? Because you're at the border. You have to pay a quota to deal in their territory, even if you're working for them. But back then, Oziel Cardenas was the head of the Gulf Cartel, and the Zetas were the enforcement arm of the cartel. Like paramilitary trained. They would do the kidnappings. They would do the beatings, the torture generally. And then the flavor of the month came to where the Joint Terrorism Task Force was being created in McAllen, and they were looking at special interest alien smuggling. And that would mean that it's not just undocumented aliens. We're looking specifically for smuggling organizations that are bringing in undocumented aliens from threat countries, China, anything Middle East, probably, Yemen, places like that, Iran, and they were. I remember even at that time, we were looking at Brazil, not because Brazilians were loaded with a threat country, but there was heavy reporting that there were camps over in Brazil to help westernize and modernize radical jihadists, to help them blend in, to come in, kind of thing. So we were looking for that. But it was rare to find like a pipeline of, like, say, the Chinese triad brings people from China all the way to New York City. Somewhere it's very rare. So you would see, like, they get to Mexico, they got a smuggler, now they got to get across the river. They get to a staging location, now they got to get around the checkpoint. And then they're on their way out into the United States. And that's what we started working. But that's the same cartel. Same cartel, you got to pay your quotas. I've had targets that ended up working with us later, but they missed their 2-week quota and they got kidnapped by the cartel. And it's the same. Back then, the torture was kind of the same. They do the battery cable thing on your nipples and stuff like that, and your private parts. They'll do cigar burns. They love doing that. Cigarette burns, prods. They would do, like, take a kilo of cocaine, just hit you in the head with it, stuff like that. It's 2.2 pounds. It's going to hurt, and things like that. But there were cases where my squad would get the kidnapping extortion calls too. So most of those were drug related, and in my mind, that's kind of like a breach of contract for me. I'm like, if you were in the dope game and your job was to drive, you're the mule. You drive the dope to Dallas. They take the dope out of the trap, put the money in the trap. You drive it back, but now it's missing $100,000. But then sometimes you would see, like, a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old, and you're like, you were in over your head. You didn't know what you were doing, and now they're being held, and families getting called, and they're saying, we're going to kill your kid unless you give us $100,000 or $300,000, and then you get it down to $100,000, and then you're basically bartering over a phone call. And a lot of times you're on an hourglass, like the sand's running, because they would only use the victim's phone and they wouldn't recharge it. So we knew we had this much, back then, we knew we had this much battery life to try to get the deal done. And, it might be finally get down with the family. The family's got $60,000, and they've got, back then, it was the 2000s, right? So maybe they got a 2006 Suburban V8 4x4 with 40,000 miles on it. Maybe, okay, we'll take the Suburban and the $100,000 or $60,000 in the Suburban. And at midnight, here we are pushing that across the bridge, and here comes the kid back across. But there were true victims that I believe as well. Like if somebody's they've paid their money to be smuggled in. So now they've crossed the river, but they're at a stash house, because now they still have to get past the checkpoint. And at that stash house, Now the smugglers are extorting the family for more money. And they're like, if you don't give us more money, we're going to dump your 5-year-old daughter in the brush and leave her to die. And we knew they would, because the case started with them dumping her aunt, who was a 16-year-old physically, mentally challenged female, and they left her in the brush to die. But luckily, Border Patrol found her. And now we're trying to save that 5-year-old girl. And we're on the phone and we're doing everything we can through our techniques, which are, we won't get into some of the stuff with tradecraft reasons, but we're trying to find that bad guy, trying to find that girl and save her. And it might be 3 days of no sleep or very little sleep and crappy food, and we're just running and gunning. This was before carnivore snacks and all that good stuff was out there, before your smartphone could tell you where good places to eat are. And then, you kick in some doors and we get the evidence we need, and we kick in some more doors and we find the 5-year-old girl and rescue her and put her on the phone with her mother. Those are some really good cases. But the cartel, again, that was they ran it, and it was there was an SOP. There was a method to it. As violent as the cartel was under OZL, I would say it got worse after OZL got taken out, because then it created this vacuum, and now you got the Sinaloa cartel saying, we're going to take over. Or you got MS-13 saying, no, we're going to take over. Or you got the Zetas going, wait a minute, we're the paramilitary people that do all the kidnapping and torturing, and we're the ones that should be running this thing. So then you get to the point to where the last time I talked to some people down there, they weren't really doing like we used to. It would just be maybe one phone call, not a lot of extortion stuff. They just chop heads off. Now, for the listeners and viewers out there, I did get a nasty gram from somebody, because I said somewhere before about not trying to say something bad about Mexico, but they didn't value life. That whole conversation was like this. We're talking about the cartel. We're talking about the bad. I'm not talking about Hispanics. I love Hispanics. I love the Hispanic culture. And I've got a boatload of friends that are Latinos and Latinas, but I'm talking about the cartel.
It's crazy that you even have to clarify
I know. I'm
that.
like, I didn't say all of Mexico.
We're not
I didn't
conflating.
Mean it. Yeah.
Okay, so you ended up getting the 5-year-old girl back.
Yeah. Put her on the phone with her mother. She was they were Hondurans, and the family was in Manassas, Virginia. And when we put her on the phone, you're exhausted too, because you've been going nonstop, and we had some go-getters, man. We had some go-getters. Some we were so go-getter, we had to slow our go-getters down. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, hold back. I got my arm like we're going to get in the crash. All right, stay right here. Hold on a second. I'm going to let you go in a minute, dadgummit. Just run through every door. And like, I'm not sure that was a good clearing technique, but there you go. I know it worked. Nobody's hurt. But yeah, every guy was crying. Like, we put her on the phone, because she still had her little Catholic girls school suit on, man. And man, she gets on the phone and she's talking Spanish to her mother, and we're all like, we get her on the phone and we're all like, everybody's looking away. Like, all the guys are turning our backs to each other, like facing outward from the circle. All right, man, you want to go get something to eat, man? I was like, man, the dust. It's terrible. And mesquite trees, I'm allergic to them. I'm leaking. Yeah, it's good stuff there, man. Those are some great cases. And but there was some pretty horrific stuff. OZL, he had a line that he fed people to. We confirmed that. Thought that was a wives' tale. He had a I don't know what to call them now. Little people. I don't want to offend them. It's midget. I don't know. That's what it was then. But apparently there was we thought it was a wives' tale, that he had a midget who was blessed in the nether region that he would use to torture people, rape them. And we thought, that's BS, man. That's a bit. So one Christmas Eve, I was driving. By this time, I have laid my groundwork in the Rio Grande Valley. I had great sources from McAllen all the way to Roma, Texas. And I'll start getting calls about a carjacking in Rio Grande City, but the guy steals the car, doesn't look in the back seat. There's an infant. So now he's in Camargo. He's in Mexico trying to pass this off. Now the cartel, they're not happy. They are pissed. Because you didn't even, now you look at all this heat you're bringing for a stupid car. You know what I mean? We got bigger things going on here, if you know what I'm saying. And they were holding him. They were getting ready to kill him. And I was driving to Phoenix, Arizona for Christmas. I had we'd traded in the truck for the minivan with the DVD player, got the 2 little girls and my wife, and we're driving, and I'm on the phone trying to make things happen and putting people in touch with sources and doing this and kind of coordinating, and they're working it. And then they called me. They got the guy back and they called me and they go, "Scott, the midget's real." And I'm like, "What? What?" And they're like, "This dude is bawling. The midget was in the room. He was getting ready to get raped when the call came in and said, all right, basically FBI's got this case, whatever it is they needed, it's time to do the deal." And then but he was in the room. That dude was crying, and I was like, the midget was real. I'm like, that's just a whole nother, that's like, I don't know. And then we had one of the last ones I did there was kind of what I mentioned earlier. It was the one where they went up, the young kids drove the car, followed by cartel members, to Dallas, somewhere around Dallas. Kids get dropped off at the mall. They take the car to wherever the bad guys are. They pull the dope out of the clavo, the trap, put the money in. Then they come back, let the kids drive the car back. They're mules. Well, it was missing $100 or more grand. And what happened with that one is we figured out what was going on. We were already working with the families because there's 3 kids, 3 different families, and we're working. And okay, I understand they lost money, but bro, these kids, come on, they're not making. How much did you pay them to drive? I mean, don't tell me. I mean, I know you're not going to tell me, but I know it wasn't $100 grand, and they're not that dumb. Well, the 2 guys that received the car, one of them was way younger. He's in the cartel, but green, working for the cartel. The other guy was older, and they called him the Eagle, Aguila, I think, right? And he was not smart. He went and bought 2 cars and put money down on a house, but he bought it where all the contacts are for cartel, and they're going, "Hey, this dude's dumping some money. Didn't you guys lose something?" kind of thing. And the last we heard is they had him in a 55-gallon drum of either diesel fuel or acid. I think this one was diesel fuel. They had already either chopped his hands or his fingers off while he's alive, and then burn him. They call it El Guiso. They make you soup, turn you into human soup. So that's what I meant when I said the value of life is a little different within the States. So, and I'm not trying to paint a bad picture, but look, like I've interviewed MS-13 members who are no longer MS-13, but they grew up in Honduras or El Sal, and they're telling me about what they had to see growing up. You're talking, your brain's not even fully developed yet, and you're seeing murdered people in the street, and they just leave them. So when you walk out of your house to go to school or the store or whatever you're going to, you're stepping over rotten bodies. Your brain's not set up for that. And I mean, kudos to that guy for getting out of it, but good gravy. I'm sitting there listening to him, and I'm like, I don't even know. I mean, that's short of a miracle. I don't know how you're straight right now, seeing all that stuff and being a part of who knows what and what you've done and seen.
Yeah, it's not a good start having your brain desensitized like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say, for the sake of example, let's say American citizens get kidnapped by the cartel, and you guys are working on that case. Let's say it's today, not necessarily the duration of a phone's battery anymore. But let's say negotiations either stall or they're non-existent, and you guys get a lead on where they're at. Now, I'm just from a curiosity perspective, would the FBI at that point, would you guys send HRT to go maybe get them? Would you coordinate with the military and
not in another
JSOC
country
thing, or
not in another country? I mean, if we that's going to a lot of red tape, just from my knowledge. That's a lot of red tape. Now, back in the 80s and 90s, maybe. There's undercovers that used to just hop on a cigarette boat and go from Miami to freaking Venezuela or something. I'm like, boy, you couldn't do that now. I'm like, some of my mentors, they're like, oh, yeah, we'd take the boat over. I'm like, man, you can't. There's no way headquarters. They'd be like, T, operation's done. But I wouldn't see that happening. Now, what's going to happen is we have all our liaisons. So that's what happens. We have a board liaison. We put trainings together. We do events together. and you may be there with somebody who's crooked. They are with the Mexican police or a police department or in Comandantes. They may or may not be dirty, but you develop the relationships. So when that kidnapping happens, I can be like, hey, I'll call the the border liaison officer and say, hey, this is what we got. The subject's name is this at 1:30 this afternoon, Central Time, at the corner of Trenton and 10th. 3 black Suburbans pulled up. Bunch of guys jumped out with balaclavas and BDUs. They grabbed the dude and they took him. Cool. Then they start calling their contacts. And you've got legats and you've got, consulates and you're reaching out to them. And you might even be reaching out to the legat in Mexico City, and they're working their way back. And then it's usually 30 minutes to an hour, we'd get a call and go, yeah, they got him. The safeties have him. He's in Miguel Alemán. And the deal is this is he lost this dope, he lost a load, he stole something, or he owes him money. Sometimes it was very rare, but sometimes it would be a legit hit extortion with no business failings or nothing like that. Or we get that more of what I picture as a hostage thing, like the 5-year-old girl. Now they're holding them at a staging location. Now that you're in the States, yeah, we're working, and that's what we did. I had to pick on that one with the 5-year-old girl. I had to pick a guy. Like, we knew that we were pretty sure our phone was at this. Let's just say it's a gas station, and I'm told something to the effect of, "Hey, it looks like the phone's moving." And at that same time, 4 different people walk out of the gas station, and you're looking and you're going. And I was just going on my gut, man. I'm just like, I'm looking at the 4 and I'm going, let's follow that one. And it was right. We put that one at a house, and then they were like, it looks like the phone is very near that house. We go up, start knocking on the door, Policia, abra la puerta, FBI, and you hear all the running and slamming in there. And we're like, all right, we got PC, man. We kick the door in, get the guy, but it's not the stash house. But then we're finding all these phones that have been cut off. That was where all the noise was. Cut all the phones on. I'm going to call the phone that's been the extortion phone, the one that's been calling the family. I'm going to call that number. And while we're all standing in the room, you dial the number and that phone goes ring, and you go, that's our phone. Turn around, But that doesn't mean he's got to tell us where the stash house is at. So we still got work to do. And then you track it down and find it. I never saw a thing like in the TV shows, where they go over and do a black op, in Mexico. I'm sure it can happen, but not to my knowledge in that FBI realm.
Well, that's what I was thinking about. Like today with, President Trump has said a lot of stuff about kind of hitting the cartels a little differently. And shit, man, I don't know
how that's going to pan out. Yeah. I'm for it. Definitely for it. But I just know, I've worked dope in some form or fashion for 28 years. Even if I was on a public corruption case, there was dope involved. That's just, I don't know. It was like the nexus. Can you really stop the war on, with the war on drugs, can you stop the inflow of drugs? From what I've seen, not for, definitely not for long, but can you shut down a huge lick in your county and your county's dry for the next 3 months? Yeah. Yeah. But you get, let's just say it's a legit warehouse in Mexico, because you've got the shipping labels and they're shipping. It's an industrial, complex or whatever. And they've got their assembly line. So let's just say in Tennessee, we take off a load and they're packaging, they're selling like PVC, something or another, some kind of industrial thing. And then in that is the dope. And we seize that. Well, once they get hit once or twice, same address, same building, now different title, now different. It's no longer long tubes. It's like square boxes or whatever. They just change it. Like, they didn't do meth forever. And then they saw that meth was easy and cheap for them to make. And to see somebody out there, like at least in my region, doing shake and bake, the old days where you'd mix up your own stuff and everybody's breaking out. So you can get, crystal meth was coming in so rampant and easy before I retired, coming through Atlanta and north. It's just like I would interview drug addicts who were downer addicts, like opioids, heroin, but they're on meth. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. That's not even the same high. That's a completely opposite high. And they go, yeah, but it's cheaper. And they just say it helped with the withdrawals. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, but yeah, it's so to say you're going to shut down the cartels, well, what would they shift to? That's what I'm thinking. Because we stop one avenue, well, what's making money? Now, of course, it's going to be something illegal, usually. But I don't know. We'll see.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the interview. If you got anything out of this video at all, please like the video, leave me a comment, tell me what you thought of the video, tell me who you'd like to see on the show. I really appreciate the support. It goes a long way on these platforms, as you guys know. Most importantly, I have some excellent interviews coming up in the future that I'm really, really excited about. So please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of them. But that's it. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it, and hope to see you again soon.